So, hi guys, welcome to the second episode of Sandwich Talks.
Hello.
So, recently we have been bombarded with the headlines and clickbaits of 10 signs of a recession, top 5 stocks to buy in a recession.
Yeah, man. Things like what to buy, what not to buy, or like we're gonna lose our jobs. But I thought this news has always been around since last year,
Yup.
right?
So, we were kind of confused by the constant appearance of the word recession, and it kind of comes up in all the news channels.
Yeah, whenever I open the papers, recession, Singapore is going to dip, or the US is going to get, worse. Okay, so for me as a working adult, so the first thing I always do whenever I hear the word recession, I get into PTSD. I just panic, I just go into panic mode because I come from the generation, where, you're taught to actually spend less, tighten our spending and our belts during a recession. And for me, I don't know why, unemployment has always scared me.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Even as a young child or, even as a young adult, right? It has always
That was
scared
like
me.
40 years ago, right?
Okay, fine. We are talking about accuracy here. So check your facts. Okay, so anyway, right. So I think that in 2008, I was a young adult during the Great Recession.
Alright.
And I remember being so panicked.
How
Be-
much of it is true, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
The young adult part, I'm not sure.
Come on, man. Yeah, so I was actually quite concerned that will I lose my job? Singapore, as you know, it's an open economy, and we are actually closely linked to the movements in the US economy, right? So we do follow closely, and there was a lot of news of even local banks,
Yup.
in a way, failing in some of their product offerings. I remember there was something called DBS notes, which actually had issues where people bought it, but then again they lost money. So anyway, as a young adult in 2008, I was just worried about recession, and I think that came from 97 when I was a very young student. My school covered about the 97 Asian financial crisis. So the entire generation, right, has gone through, I think, at least about 2 or 3 recessions.
So basically, we all have heard the term recession, and all of us are scared of it. We stop spending and we start hiding in our shells and all that.
Yeah,
But
scary.
how many of us really does know the term recession and what it actually means?
But I thought it meant the GDP has dipped. I mean, that's a mainstream.
Yup. Everybody
idea,
thinks the
right?
economy crashes, and everybody loses their job.
And the biggest, most ugliest word, unemployment.
I think most employees react with dread when there's a recession whisper. But if we are unharmed, we kind of just tend to dust it off and move on with our lives.
Yeah, that's kind of true. Like since I've been alive for quite a couple of decades, right?
About 50 decades.
50 decades.
Yeah.
That's like 500 years.
Yeah.
I'm not immortal. So anyway, right. Yeah, it's like my personal experience is that, right, whenever I hear the term recession, right, I just feel so fearful, as what I've said earlier. But the other thing is, I always wonder, why don't the experts warn us?
Yeah.
Right? It's like there are so many people out there, who are highly educated.
Yeah.
They're getting paid big bucks. I mean, they are
They're
all very highly
getting paid
intelligent.
millions of dollars.
Yeah,
right?
they're all highly intelligent, you see.
Yeah.
But I wonder, why don't they tell us to be ready, or how come they can't advise governments, to actually implement steps to sort of elevate the
Yeah.
negative effects of recession, right?
Just
I've
like a
always
cushion,
wondered.
right?
Yes.
But you do know that some of these big guys, they kind of make money during the recession, right?
Yeah, that's called shorting, which we will cover in the subsequent episodes.
Yep. So the thing is that most of us might not realize that it's very hard for anyone or even any organization or government to actually predict crashes or bull runs with great accuracy.
But that's an easy thing to say. If that's the case, nothing in life is predictable.
It's true because as humans, most of us, or at least some of us, are irrational or it's erratic. When we see something exciting, we just get all excited and we just start thinking with our emotions rather than yeah.
Okay, so markets, right? I think our learning point, right? Okay, as beginners, right, we have come to the realization that markets are actually highly erratic.
Yes.
Right, and also sometimes I think the word I can use is irrational, because I think the market participants may just react in a way that could be not the same as the norm, right?
So even
Yeah.
the market, there's billions of participants in the market. So
yeah.
how is one person or one organization going to collate this collective reaction from these billions of people?
Yeah, man. After, I mean, like some couples can't even predict their partner's reaction after the kids. He's laughing at me.
Yeah.
Go on.
I mean, it's kind of relatable to her, right?
Yeah.
So, but life is one big circle, and so is the financial markets,
Yeah.
because there's so many things happening at the same time, and we don't really know where to look and how to gain, and we think it's a tall order at the end of the day to make an accurate prediction.
Yeah, okay. I think that when we started this journey, we were all excited. Hey, we are going to be the next people to predict something with
Yup.
accuracy. But I think what we have learned and what we're going to start off this channel is with the idea that the markets have so many participants and everyone is trying to do something that benefits them. Okay, so that makes the markets really unpredictable. So I think we ourselves we are trying to accurately,
Yep.
okay, make the best call based on our research. Of course, which could go in the
Yep.
right way or in the opposite way. All right, so that's why I think there are so many contradicting
It's known as
headlines.
an educated guess.
Yes, you're right. Okay,
Yes.
yes. So we're trying to make this kind of proper guesses.
Proper guesses.
Yes. Go on.
So just because that the markets are erratic doesn't mean that we shouldn't make any valiant attempts to understand the impossible. So here at Sandwich Talks, that's what we are trying to do. And what we are trying to do is also convey that information to you in a manner which would be easy for you to understand.
I mean, we are, because we are aware that we may not have the right answer all the time, but I think that with utmost integrity, we will understand it and make the best call based on research and logic.
So before we even try to comprehend what a recession is, firstly we need to understand the typical business cycle.
What is it?
So a business cycle, or at times known as the economic cycle,
Okay, Paul. So these two terms are used interchangeably?
no,
No, right?
yep, they're actually different.
But for the simplistic,
For the simplistic point of view,
uh-huh.
we are going to just talk about the general consensus of what it is.
Okay.
Okay, so they're actually known as intervals of expansion, followed by contractions in an economic system.
So every business cycle has a period of contraction and expansion, correct?
Yes, so basically it's up and down.
Yeah, so from what I've learned, when it goes to the top, it's called the peak.
Yes.
And then from the peak, when the economy can't expand anymore,
Yeah.
it will start to slide down or
Yep.
contract. And that's called a
Contraction.
contraction. I
Yep.
see.
So basically, a recession is actually, or most of the time, technically defined as 2 quarters of negative gross domestic product per capita growth.
So in simple terms, you're saying the economies, if they register lesser GDP for 6 months in a row, that is seen as a recession.
Yes.
So if let's say right, they have 3 months of decline and 3 months of expansion and vice versa, that
Yep.
is not a recession.
No, that's a very normal cycle.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. So it's normal to go up and down within every 3 months. But that could be unhealthy, right?
Yep, that might be unhealthy.
Okay,
Yup.
I see.
So this is kind of fairly easy to comprehend, but the real challenge is actually for us to spot where in the cycle can we make the best financial decision which would suit that part of the cycle.
Yeah, because some of the choices we make during the expansion phase could make us money. But then again, the other choice we make during the contractionary phase can also make us money,
Yup.
right?
So it's
Yeah.
the very common conception that we only can make money in the bull run, everybody's ready to make money in the bull run, but we are here to tell you that you can make money even during a bear market as well.
Yeah, okay. So one thing that I think we are going to cover in the
Yep.
subsequent episode will be that how do we make money during a recession? People always say short some stock. I know a friend who just tells me, "Oh, short the market during a recession."
Yeah.
Right?
But what do we short?
Yeah.
There's so many sectors.
Correct. So like, what do we short? How do we short? Yeah. So I think the challenge comes from there, right?
Yep.
You just can't short any sector or any
Yeah.
industry, right? We
Yep.
need to be clear, which sectors to short and which to long.
So, but before we actually go into all of that, first let's talk about how we can actually spot signs of a possible recession in 2023. Okay, so currently from our viewpoint, and during the pandemic years, we were actually at the peak of the business cycle.
Uh-huh.
Sounds contradictory, right? Yep.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, wait. So you're saying that now we're sliding down, right? I thought during the pandemic, people were all at home. So how can it be at the peak?
But if you realize, most of the stocks were hitting their all-time highs during the pandemic.
Yeah, I read somewhere that people were bored, so
Yeah.
they're buying stocks.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we can look at that later.
But how do we know we are here? So here are some of the signs that we actually spotted with our novice eyes. So the big bet of 2022 was actually inflation.
Yeah, they keep talking about inflation, right?
Yup.
To the point that I was like, okay, yeah, I
Yup.
know. Because I think inflation is defined as a term where the price of goods are going higher and higher, are increasing in relative to our incomes, correct?
Yes.
So, but how do we get there?
So how do we get here? So during the post-COVID recovery period, people actually began consuming and purchasing everything from small to large ticket items. So a small ticket item could be something like, a makeup or hairdresser. Sorry, not a hairdresser, but a hair
He
dryer.
wants to buy the hairdresser.
Yes.
Oops, that's inappropriate to buy a hairdresser.
But also people tend to buy large ticket items like cars, sports cars.
But they're at home, so why are they buying cars?
Just because, governments were giving this thing known as stimulus programs.
You mean a stimulus program can buy you a sports car?
No, but it definitely influenced people to start spending more.
Okay. So from my understanding, right, because people are stuck at home, you
Yup.
know, and they are worried because from my understanding is a lot of governments gave out stimulus checks and implemented these programs because many people were unemployed or
Yes.
they were stuck at home, right?
So some of these examples would be the US and Singapore.
Oh yeah, Singapore, we got quite a bit of help during this time, right?
Yep. And we actually not only did we get help, but we actually got financial help.
Yes.
So the government tend to give cash payouts
Yes.
to each family.
Yeah, so that we can live life as normal, because I think the pandemic was so traumatic for many families,
So what
right?
did you do with the stimulus check?
Oh, because I was employed during the pandemic. I am an essential worker. Yeah, so I was working, so I didn't get actually any stimulus check.
Oh really? I thought you told me you bought some makeup.
No, that was because I was stuck at home. I was working from home, right?
Ah.
So yeah, he's laughing at me again and again. This is the problem when you have younger brothers.
So do you know how we actually got here?
You mean the peak at the economic cycle during the pandemic?
Yup.
You see, but this thing, I'm a bit lost right now because during the pandemic, wasn't so many industries sort of came to a standstill,
Yup.
like a shutdown?
So actually this didn't happen during COVID, but actually during the post-COVID recovery period,
Okay.
where people actually began consuming and purchasing excessively. So
okay.
everything from small to even large ticket items.
I see. So, so they were unemployed during the pandemic, some people, right?
Yup.
So I understand that governments try to help them to get by through stimulus programs.
Yes, so people actually tend to buy small ticket items such as makeup or a hair dryer,
Bags,
bags. But
shopping clothes,
yeah,
right?
but
Clothes.
at that point of time, people also started heavily investing in stocks and all these kind of things to actually gain some money while
And
they
that's
were
when there was a bull run, I think, in 2021, 22,
doing-
right?
Yes.
Everything was hitting historic high.
Yeah, everybody was making money in the market.
Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. But I think I missed that cycle. I was a bit slow.
Yeah.
Okay, so countries like Singapore and the US, even Japan, right? They
Yeah.
had some kind of stimulus program.
Where they gave out cash handouts
Cash
to
handouts.
each family.
Yeah, so I think that for some families, right, these were very useful because they let them actually tide through the difficult times
Yup.
where they were not employed, right?
Yup.
Especially those with children or elderly parents as
Yup.
well. But I also realized that because people were staying at home, it seemed that they were consuming more, right? Okay, they were, I think, buying stuff. Clothes. Okay, I'm not sure whether it was always clothes, but I know that they went to buy consumer items.
So actually this excessive spending actually led to more than foreseen increase in demand, leading to higher competition for limited supply of raw materials.
So, for example, because I'm home and everybody's home, for example, if I keep buying bags, everybody keeps buying bags.
So what happens?
The demand for the bags would go up.
While the supply remains the same or it decreases.
Yes.
So obviously the price would also tend to increase, right?
So you're saying that with more demand, okay, that indirectly led to an increase in
An excessive demand.
an excessive demand. So it led to the increase in the price of raw materials, which got passed down
To
in
goods and
terms.
services.
I see. So those goods became more expensive.
Yes, and this actually increased inflationary pressures, which actually increased the cost of living for the entire planet. So what do you think the governments, even the Fed, what do you think they did?
Okay, so we are talking about in the case of the United States,
Yup.
right? Because we all like to watch what they do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're kind of westernized, right?
Yeah. So the idea of inflation was worldwide, like what you were saying.
Yup.
Everywhere prices were like going up for the most basic things,
Yeah, of
right?
course.
Even for like food,
Yeah.
right? And also like consumption items. So I think the Feds actually increase the interest rates.
Yup,
So what's the
definitely.
connection?
So when they actually increase interest rates, this actually leads to discouraging borrowing and spending.
By individuals and companies, I guess.
Yes, by
Okay.
both individuals and companies.
Mhm.
So this is actually to curb or cool down demand. So people are not able to take loans to purchase big ticket items or even small ticket items.
Okay.
So basically the cost of borrowing becomes much more expensive.
Oh yeah, definitely. So if things cost more for me to buy, I'm gonna cut my spending, right?
Yes.
I'm gonna wait till the interest rate goes down. So that as a whole may affect the price of goods and services.
Yes.
So increasing the interest rates is one way governments try to cool down overheated
Yes.
markets. Okay.
Okay. But there's one more sign which we actually saw, which was extremely important. The word you said that we hate.
Unemployment.
Yeah.
God. Yeah. I mean, this is the problem, you see. On one hand, right, they keep talking about how everything is going up in price, right? Because the price has gone up because there's so much of demand. And on the other hand, there was so much unemployment, especially the third, quarter of 2022 onwards.
Yup, and even the first quarter of 2023.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know, especially by the big tech companies, right?
Yeah, so industry-wide layoffs were actually so prominent during this time.
But isn't that linked to the fact that the Feds kept increasing the interest rates?
Yes. So because of increased cost of borrowing, companies actually wanted to reduce their cash expenditure or even their cash cycle. So they tend to decrease the number of employees which they actually employed.
Oh, okay. It's okay. Wait, I am a simple person. So he's saying that because as a company, I may want to expand, right?
Yup.
But I can't do that because my cost of borrowing has gone up. So one reason I may want to let go of employees is because I can't borrow more funds to expand my business.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what these companies what they did was they identified sectors which they overemployed and they actually
Cut down.
they cut down.
Oh, that's a good point about overemployment. You know, I remember in early part of 2023, there was quite a couple of reports where I think Meta employees were making TikToks on how they were paid to do nothing.
Yeah.
Right, so
Yeah.
they'll go to the office and
Drink
just
coffee and
and
chit-chat.
just chit-chat, and they were getting paid like 180 grand, 200
Yeah,
grand. I was like,
Jesus.
what? Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's amazing. Okay, but of course, some of you could say it's unethical, but I think that my understanding is that during the pandemic years, all these big tech companies, you know, they saw a huge surge in their services. Like Amazon saw a huge demand
Yup.
in online shopping,
Yup.
right? So Meta, I think, or even YouTube, right?
Yup.
They saw a huge demand in people using their platforms. So they employed so many people on a rapid scale, and that led to an enlarged workforce. So when the pandemic ended, it looks like they have to let these people go because I believe that they hired them too quickly.
Definitely.
So that's another reason why it looks like, hey, there's so much employment, and thus, oh my gosh, there's going to be a recession. But I honestly think that this is not really that terrible because you hired too fast anyway.
So, based on this table which you see on the screen, for those who are watching our YouTube video, these are the exact numbers of the tech layoffs by the big tech companies globally.
I think people just got panicked over the numbers, but I think if you look at the bigger picture, if you're going to get hired to do nothing, okay, I'm not saying everyone got hired to do nothing, but I think that over hiring in a short span of time, let's call it a hiring spree.
Yeah.
I think it has led to subsequent problems as well. Alright?
So this has actually led to credit tightening and a moderate to slow growth prospect for companies.
Okay, pause. What is credit tightening?
So basically what happens now is that companies face higher borrowing costs due to increased interest rates. So there's limited avenues for expansion for developing new products. As you can see from this photo, this guy is unable to borrow money. And because of this, expansion is actually cut or limited. And thus companies, what do they obviously do?
Fire!
Of course. First of all, they start hiring less workers or they fire existing ones.
Yeah, can I ask you, because I think it was the pandemic era where Meta announced the development of the metaverse, right? I remember it was so exciting. Me, coming from the previous generation, was wondering, what is the metaverse? You know, it looks so exciting and it sounds so great. But I believe that after 6 to 8 months or so,
So why do you think overhiring actually happened?
okay, from what I understood, companies like Meta actually hired people to meet the demand they had during the pandemic, right? Yeah, so it looks like because of the pandemic, people were using their services more, and so there was a surge in demand. So in order to meet this demand, all right, so I believe that Meta just went on a massive hiring spree and they kept on getting workers, you know. And I think there was a news where one lady said that she was paid 200 grand a year to just rest and drink coffee.
Oh god.
Yeah, that was,
I wish it could be me.
and I want to be the lady also.
I just want to be that lady.
I mean, there were plenty of them who just drank coffee and just looked empty screens. Yeah. But also, I think a lot of companies actually made a very big bet during the pandemic. So besides Meta and the metaverse, I think Amazon wanted to expand their warehouses,
Yeah.
you know, to really meet the surge in demand. But I think that the problem is that sometimes these assumptions or this, you know,
Miscalculation.
miscalculation, okay, for demand may not always work out. So I think when all these miscalculated moves happen, so companies may be forced to, you know, slow down hiring or even, you know, cut or
Yup.
fire people.
So this was actually evident in the losses reported by various tech companies.
But I thought they made money during the pandemic year. So the losses were after the pandemic.
Yes.
Okay.
When this was because of the overhiring.
Mm,
So this surge in demand was there,
okay.
but they miscalculated it, and overall in the end,
Mm-hmm.
it did not meet the expectations. So for the
Okay.
amount of labor they hired,
Okay.
it did not meet
So
the
you are trying to
expectations.
say that I made a forecast for a higher demand,
Yes.
and this demand may not actually materialize.
Yes.
And from there, I realized, oh dear, I've overhired.
Yep.
So I'm going to fire workers, right?
Yep. So in order to
Okay.
streamline their operations and to actually ensure profitability,
Uh-huh.
so companies actually underwent massive layoffs to cut their
You
workforce.
see, but that's the thing. We need to discuss about labor laws. Sometimes, right? When companies hire, they could have actually have contractual basis. So it looks to me that when all these people were fired, they appear shocked. So I'm not too sure about U.S. labor laws, honestly. Okay, but I know for Singapore, companies do use contracts like yearly contracts. So they're allowed to hire you on a yearly basis, and
Yes.
if you're not needed, you are just not renewed for the
Yup.
next round of contract. So we can talk about that in the next episode.
So at the last quarter of 2022, the US economy actually seemed as if it was in the late cycle expansion phase of the business cycle. Okay, this was evident through the tight labor market, declining profit margins, rising inventories, and contractionary monetary policies.
Okay, I want to just ask you, what do you mean by the late cycle expansion? I thought they're already contracting.
But as we said before, we're actually going down the slippery slope. So this was in
Ah.
late 2022.
Okay, so contraction, guys, is just a phase. It's not a one-off thing, or it's not a singular event,
Yes.
right? It is a process.
Yes, it is a
It may
process.
take months, right, or even years.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, right. So now, so the tight labor market comes because of.
So this is seen from the evidence of declining profit margins, rising inventories, contractionary monetary policies, and rising inflation rates.
So all this is all coming together. It looks like the economies and companies got hit really hard, because of the pandemic, right?
Yes, but we actually have a confusion before we move on.
Okay.
So one of the things which a lot of people think is that, I'm earning more money every year. Oh, my boss is increasing my salary every year. The absolute numbers increasing. But how come I feel like I'm still not, I don't feel like I have more purchasing power?
Inflation, because the prices of goods have gone up tremendously.
Yes. So this is because of the nominal wage growth.
Okay,
So
what is that?
So essentially, just by numbers itself,
Uh-huh.
the nominal growth of these numbers are actually the highest.
Okay.
But due to high inflation, this has actually rendered the real wage growth.
Okay, bro. So you're saying that maybe last month I was earning 1,000, now I'm earning 2,000. So my income has gone up by double, right?
Yes.
But it may not feel like double the growth because the items are also more expensive.
Yes.
Okay. So nominally my amount has gone up.
Yup.
But in terms of purchasing power,
Yes.
technically it may have decreased. Could have decreased.
Could have decreased.
Okay.
But because of such high inflation levels, this has actually rendered real wage growth negative and is actually weighing on consumer confidence.
Okay, guys, for those of you who are watching the YouTube, you can look at the screen for the most recent inflation numbers.
So because of this, Fed hikes have actually raised the cost of borrowing, especially for mortgage rates.
Okay, but we want to just say that in the recent months, especially the last 3-4 months of 2023, the rate of increase has actually slowed down. The Fed seems to be tapering the amount they're actually increasing the interest rate by still being increased by smaller amounts.
So globally, most economies are actually facing challenges with growth and inflation. Europe may already be in a recession while China is actually struggling to emerge from its growth recession.
Okay, but for China, it's a very interesting case study. I think a lot of countries were excited that China was opening up after the pandemic. But it's very interesting to know that China is actually at the risk of another recession
Yup.
when they just came out of the pandemic stress.
So most major economies actually experience maturing trends in their business cycles due to high commodity prices and inflationary pressures. Europe has slightly tipped into recession and is particularly exposed to a fallout from the war in Ukraine.
Even after a year, Europe is still teething from the Russian-Ukraine war.
Do you think that they are still affected by it?
Yeah, but you see, that's the problem with things like this, you see. Like, I think the first couple of months, everybody was panicking. But now, I mean, this may not be a right thing to say, but I feel that the war in Ukraine, to me, it seems to have forgotten, and I think economically people seems to be able to deal with it. Initially, there was a lot of spike in price, certain prices, especially commodities like
Yep,
oil,
natural
right?
gas.
Natural gas, right? But I think after more than a year of the war, the markets and consumers seems to have adjusted to
Yup.
these higher prices.
So while there's some differentiation among other developing and non-US developed markets, most economies are facing challenging stagflationary headwinds due to high commodity prices and the lagging impact of higher interest rates.
Oh yeah, on a last note, stagflation is something I learned this year.
Yes.
It is the phenomena where there is higher unemployment rates and higher inflation rates, correct?
Yes.
That is quite a unique thing. So cost of living or cost of prices are going up, but at the same time, people are also losing their jobs.
Yes.
It's a bit of a paradox because normally when people lose jobs, they may, they're supposed to buy less or consume less. Thus, items and the prices are supposed to decrease. But in this case, it looks like the rate of inflation is quite high. At the same time, unemployment levels are also quite high. So I'm wondering, if you're out of a job, why are you still paying so much for certain goods?
So that's a big question, right?
But I think that's partly because of supply side. Because it costs more to make the same goods right now because of supply pressures.
Yep.
Correct? So I think the current stagflation comes because of higher raw material prices, and that has resulted in higher consumer goods, for example, and people have to pay more even though they're unemployed. That's what I understand.
Yup, I think we have pretty much the same common
It's
understanding.
such a mess this year. It was supposed to be an easy year, guys.
Yup.
It's such a mess. We have
Suppose-
inflation, we have unemployment.
It's supposed to be a smooth sailing year, but seems like there are quite a few knocks and bumps along the way.
Yeah, so what do we do when it's such a risky times right now?
So in our next episode, we are actually going to take a look at some relatively stable sectors known as recession-proof sectors.
Okay, I look forward to that.
Thank you guys.
Goodbye. Thank you.